Well, good morning. My name is Dengyan Chu. I'm the director of CERIAS. Welcome to the 25th CERIAS Annual Security Symposium. So I would like to announce the opening of the 25th CERIAS Annual Security Symposium. A very warm welcome and welcome back to all of you coming to the symposium from academia, industry, and government. It's really an exciting time to be at Purdue, where Boilermakers make headlines on all fronts, including science, technology, education, and most recently, NCAA basketball. Yay. Standing with me and around the room are my CERIAS colleagues. They are the true heroes who have worked so hard to bring to you this flagship annual cybersecurity event. So please call on any one of us at any time if you need any help or information. So I would like to quickly introduce my colleague, Director Emeritus Professor Gene Spafford. He's gonna make a few remarks regarding housekeeping history before I continue. Before I continue. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. So as Dongyan said, this is the 25th annual symposium. It is actually the 26th year of CERIAS. We do that just, an off by one error to just throw people off a little bit. The very first year when we started, we didn't have an annual symposium, and so this is sort of catch up in a way. We're really pleased to have you with us here today. We have some great speakers. Many of our alumni are here, and during the breaks, you get a chance to network and perhaps meet with them. I'm going to give you a few housekeeping announcements and then turn it back over to Dongyan. First of all, we will have some coffee breaks, and coffee is available in the next room down the hall. It's still 214. It's a different letter. I think it's 218 or 218 down the hall. Feel free to stop down there and get a cup of coffee if you feel the need, or tea, or whatever else we have out. Restrooms are at the end of the hall down this way, just before the stairwell. There are also restrooms on floors above and below at basically the same location. The Union Building is next door, and we have in the basement floor a number of food vendors, coffee vendors, gift shops, and other things. So if you feel the need to spend some money on campus during a break, that's a good place to go visit. Final Four t-shirts, yeah. Get your order in for NCAA champion t-shirts, those things. Also, as you probably noticed, especially if you came in last night or you were in the area last night, we are having some severe weather. It is Indiana, which means we have unpredictable weather. In particular, if you hear sirens during the event, that is a warning that we should evacuate in an orderly fashion and go to the basement of this building. Sirens do not mean to go outside and look for funnel clouds. Remember, you're security and safety people. We go to the basement where there are no windows. The building is well secured. We've done that before at a previous symposium. It's great fun for informal networking in the basement. And we want to keep you all safe. If that happens, or if you are leaving the room, please take your valuables with you. Generally, people at Purdue are very trustworthy, but we have all kinds of riffraff here from government and other places. We don't know. It's a good idea not to leave anything valuable lying around. If there's a fire alarm in the building also, then evacuate the building. Look for one of us here, either with a CERIAS pin on or some of our students wearing CERIAS t-shirts, helpers, and go to the nearest exit. There are stairwells at either end of this floor. Take them down to the ground floor and outside. Those are the major things. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to call on one of us. We'll be happy to assist you. We're delighted you're here. many familiar faces. Some of you have been coming to this event for over a decade, and we appreciate your repeated attendance and participation. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you, Spaff. So we have an exciting two-day program ahead of you with keynotes, panels, fireside chat, tech talks, and a poster session. So we would like to thank our honorable keynote speakers, fireside chat speaker, our panelists, our tech talk and poster presenters, and representatives from our industry and government partners for your time, contribution, and guidance. We admire your technical visions, achievements, and experiences, and look forward to your remarks. I would also like to express my special thanks to our colleagues from Sandia National Labs who worked very hard to bring the pre-symposium tracer fire cybersecurity cyber attack response training camp back to Purdue during the weekend of March 23rd. It is great to know that it was once again a sold-out event. So the term cybersecurity has an ever-changing scope today. It covers not only the traditional cyber systems and infrastructures like clouds, computers, and smartphones. It now expands to anything in the real world that has a digital component. So more recently, we have seen the super exponential advances in AI and its application to cyber and cyber physical security, with new concerns about its trustworthiness arising at the same time. So I'm pleased to report that since last year, Purdue has become a hub university of the Action Institute, a NSF AI Research Institute that studies the interplay between AI and security. As our slogan put it, AI-empowered security and security-inspired AI. So this leads to the broader vision of CERIAS vision called Cyber Plus X, which advocates embedding cybersecurity in domain science and engineering. And this vision is being reflected by our ongoing research and education initiatives. For example, all of our ongoing large-scale multi-million-dollar projects are on Cyber Plus X, with X equal to AI, autonomous vehicles, decentralized finance, transportation, and manufacturing and supply chains. So Cyber Plus X is also reflected by the panels and tech talks and posters at this symposium. For example, there's going to be a cyber physical system security panel this afternoon and a code meets chips panel tomorrow afternoon, where experts will discuss how bugs and vulnerabilities at the chip level can be exploited by malicious code like the famous Meltdown and Spectre exploits, and as a result, disrupt the execution of benign operating system and application code. So with Cyber Plus X, the cyber and cyber physical security research, education, and workforce development has never been so interdisciplinary and full of new challenges and exciting opportunities. So with that, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce the 13th president of Purdue University, Dr. Meng Chang. President Chang is an engineer, educator, technology entrepreneur, and innovator who previously served as both Purdue's Executive Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and the John Everson Dean of the College of Engineering. The winner of the National Science Foundation's Alan T. Waterman Award in 2013, the highest honor presented to an American researcher under the age of 40, he's also a member of the National Academy of Inventors and the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences. Please join me in welcoming Purdue President Meng Chang. Thank you, sir.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Spaff and Dongyan, and to the entire CERIAS community here. This is the silver anniversary. And 25 years ago, last century, that is, Purdue's leadership in our education and research effort had the foresight to create this most unique and impactful institute in CERIAS and started hosting this annual symposium on security. So it's such a delight and honor to be here to sing happy birthday. Don't worry, I'm not going to actually sing. That's worse than those siren, and then you all have to hide in the basement right away, as Spaff said. It's also such a delight to welcome all of you here I know many of you are repeated visitor at this time of the year to Purdue, and some are new. Welcome, including those from government services, DoD service branches, from DOE National Labs, from Department of Commerce, NIST, and I know that later today we are going to also welcome Madam Undersecretary Heidi Xu, among many other distinguished guests, keynote speakers. And welcome to those who are coming here from industry. I saw a lot of familiar logos right here. We have this 360 engagement model with our industry partners, from education and recruiting to online training, of course, research, innovation, collaboration, to even site selection and bringing part of your company to be here at the Discovery Park District in West Lafayette, Indiana. And to those who are from academia, I have a very special message for you that we would like to recruit you away from your home institution and come here to Purdue. Is the transfer portal. Now, ever since Easter Sunday, which is merely 2 nights ago, I have to go around the world and clarify, explain that Purdue University is not just great at basketball. Has been 44 years since our men's basketball is able to get into the Final Four in NCAA March Madness. 44 years, and finally, Final Four. Now, how many are Boilermakers? Well, the Boilermakers lead to a better round of applause than that for our men's basketball. Now I have to explain. Actually, it's a very, very strong university. Also in other areas such as cybersecurity. And last century, not as many institutions had the kind of foresight as Purdue scholars did. And now we all understand just how critically important it is to both national security and to civilian lives. The attack surface is getting wider. The method of attack is getting ever more elusive, and the consequences are ever more grave. It's not just cyber, but as Dongyan highlighted, cyber plus X. And it's going to be in the physical world. It's going to be in the AI world. It's going to be going all the way from chips to systems. And Purdue University is uniquely positioned to continue to be the national leader through CERIAS. And I just want to tell you, we have a redoubling effort in national security and defense in particular. From Mitch Daniels' last couple of years in launching new initiatives in this area to the past year and a half, we have taken, for example, the IGDSI Institute into, we will call PINS, a Purdue Institute for National Security. And then we also created PERI, Purdue Applied Research Institute, to take some of the special combat vehicles over there and to do secure work as well. On the education side, we have not only one of the largest ROTC programs, but also one of the largest PMI programs that is for graduate students who are currently serving in armed forces to come here to get a master or PhD and then return to service. And then last year, we're one of the 5 universities in the country to be invited to the inaugural class of DCTC as well. And we have an outstanding online set of programs through Purdue University Online and Purdue Global, educating well over 10,000 today veterans. Very proud of our effort in research, in education, but also we cannot walk this alone. This is a partnership. We have a partnership with all the service branches, including the AFRL's Midwest Innovation Network. And of course, with our friends in Navy Crane Division in Southern Indiana. There's long-standing, outstanding collaboration, especially in hypersonics, energetics, and secure microelectronics. So back to right here in this symposium and CERIAS outstanding event. This really is a very special place, because I'm not sure how many universities in the country today have the kind of excellence at scale, quality and quantity when it comes to the topic of security. Immensely proud and honored to serve the great colleagues you meet today. Always say that they are my bosses and I'm at their service. And we are at the service of national security, and we are here to intensify, accelerate, and amplify the partnership with all of you. So thank you again very much. And I'm gonna return the mic back to Dongyan to introduce our first keynote speaker and to the next 25 years. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Meng. Thank you. And a little token of appreciation for President Chang. This is the vest with the Purdue logo.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Is it secure as well?
I believe so. It's fully vetted, so it's, yes.
Okay, all right, just wearables, you know, these things. Well,
Absolutely.
I just want to say, this is exactly my job. I used to be an engineer. Now I just go around to watch basketball games and get goodie bags. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was, am I on mic? Okay, I'm on now. So that was a set of outstanding remarks, and as you saw, it led to a mic drop moment there. Hi, Dongyan. So I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, who's due to start at 9. So I've got 7 minutes to do an intro, and I'm sure he'll appreciate that. No, he's worried about that. But nonetheless, delighted to have as our first keynote speaker, someone that I've known for over 20 years. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about his background because his bio in the program doesn't really convey all of this. Dr. Daniel Ragsdale has had an illustrious 47-year career in protecting the United States and interests of all of us, with a significant portion of that spent in cybersecurity. His academic journey is really quite notable. He started an undergraduate at Texas A&M and completed it at West Point, the U.S. Military Academy. He got a master's degree in computer science at the Naval Postgraduate School and a PhD in computer science back at Texas A&M. And you'll hear me mention Texas A&M several times in this bio. All of this while serving in the U.S. Army. He completed 30 years in uniform in the U.S. Army, leaving at the rank of colonel, and along the way receiving numerous awards, including Legion of Merit, 6 Meritorious Service Awards, and a Bronze Star. For those of you who aren't familiar with military awards, these are all notable awards. They're not given just for showing up. He got some of those too. In between deployments to various places around the world, Dan has held several research and faculty positions at West Point, including as Vice Dean of Education, which is the principal deputy to the Chief Academic Officer at the U.S. Military Academy. His focus on education continued after he left the military, being the founding director of Texas A&M's Cybersecurity Center, and this also relates to his current position at the Office of the National Cyber Director, and he'll tell you more about that. He's won several national awards as an educator, including an Educator of the Year award, and so he does more than just the research and the speaking part. After retiring from the military, in addition to his time at Texas A&M, Rags, as he's known by many, served as a program manager at DARPA and a principal director for cyber at the Pentagon, where he was responsible for modernization and policy developments across the Department of Defense. He's been in his current position since August of this year at the Executive Office of the President. As I said, Rags and I met about 20 years ago and have continued to cross paths and keep in touch, sharing stories about teaching, research, and policy. We share a deep interest in education and promoting students and alumni and the journey in cybersecurity. We both share the distinction of having started a university cybersecurity center at a major university. We're both commonly known by the first four letters of our last names. And we may also have a common hairstylist. So with all of that, I'm just really delighted that Dan is back to visit with us and here to give our opening talk. Please welcome Dr. Daniel Ragsdale.
I think am I on here?
You should be on.
Okay, very, very good. First of all, Spaff, I can't thank you enough for your truly kind words. And the big takeaway from all of that is I can't keep a job, right? Also, I'm going to highlight, so I'm going to start this clock here. And that's important for all of you because perhaps like Spaff and others, I've never been accused of being short of words. Okay, so unless this alarm goes off, we could very well be here at midnight tonight. You know, you may have heard of this filibuster phenomena that takes place in the city that I happen to live in. I'm going to try to avoid that. Also, because I happen to work in that particular place now, I have approved remarks. Literally, they had to go through them with a fine-tooth comb. And interestingly, I'll point out something that was deleted, sadly, and I'll point that out because it relates to you, Spaff, and your very, very, very kind introduction. I am beyond thrilled to be here. I'm looking out here at all these hopeful faces, many of them familiar. I won't call you out by name because to do so would risk not highlighting somebody else that had an important and consequential impact on me in this long journey. And so, first of all, thank you to our host, Dong-Yan, your eloquent president, Dr. Chung. And I want to thank you for your leadership. And Spaff, thank you for your leadership and your dedications to your students and to your community. I can't really express how excited I am today. I've already tried to do that. The silver anniversary of the CERIAS Symposium. Let that sink in. With hundreds of scholarly papers, tens of thousands of citations, this event has moved forward the boundaries of knowledge, unquestionably, in this critical domain of study. And more importantly, it has helped usher in a new generation of scholars dedicated to advancing the state of the art, the state of the practice of cybersecurity. Truly excellence at scale, as we've heard earlier today. Now, this event signifies not only 25 years of remarkable knowledge, sharing, and innovation, but also serves as an enduring testament to the incredibly positive influence of the team here at CERIAS. And in particular, I'm going to call him out now as he called me out, your founding director, Spaff. The Spaff we all know and love, and whom we all hold in such esteem. We know him as the inimitable, irrepressible, indomitable, sometimes irascible thought leader. We know him as the inquisitive soul and the pioneering scholar who has blazed new trails for all of us and countless others to follow. And finally, and most importantly, we know him as a remarkably inspirational educator who has greatly challenged and expertly advised over the scores of students over the course of the last 4 decades. All that said, and this is the part that actually cut down remarks for you. They said, you know, we try not to pick favorites in the White House. So it sounds like you're bending over far too backwards to honor one of your hosts. So that it would have continued, much to your embarrassment and chagrin, I'm sure. all that being said, what I am most thrilled about is to be among an impassioned group of fellow unindicted, co-conspiratorial arsonists, all of you, one and all, who have lit and continue to light fires with nearly reckless abandon. And you're wondering, where exactly are we going with this? I'm not going to leave that for later in the talk, but hopefully you'll get that point. Now, in terms of background, you've already heard way too much about me, but I did want to give a little additional background that might help frame the remarks I'm about to give. So in my naive youth, many decades ago, I was often advised from a gruff, no-nonsense, combat-hardened Air Force officer who had a tough exterior but a very soft heart. He also happened to be my dearly departed dad, Colonel Roy D. Ragsdale, who, along with my mother, Army nurse, Second Lieutenant Betty Ragsdale, served in the Pacific Theater during World War II, and Dad much later in Vietnam. Dad made it clear to me that he considered one of the keys to life was expectation management. Setting them too low, you don't ever really accomplish anything. But if you set them too high, you're almost certain to disappoint. So to level set your expectations about what's going to transpire over the next 40 or so minutes, I wanted to tell you, like I said, just a little bit more about myself. I did attend Texas A&M as an undergrad in the 70s, and I came back in the 90s to get my PhD. Took me the better part of a quarter century to get a degree in true Aggie fashion. Those of you that know that venerable institution on the Brazos. Institution, much like Purdue, that those that went there, have taught there, are associated with, very proud. But for those of you that may have heard, despite its international acclaim, somewhat unjustly, some of its graduates are not always considered to be the sharpest tools in the shed. I don't know, has anyone heard this? If not, bury my soul here in channeling my inner Groucho or Curly or Ben Homer Smith. I publicly acknowledge that I do resemble that remark. Case in point, in 1976, as a freshman in the Corps Cadets, a fish in the Corps Cadets, I won, believe it or not, a trip to Paris. All expense paid trip. Now, my initial conclusion was Paris, Texas, but as it turns out, it was Paris, France. And I was thrilled, but a little intimidated, right? I didn't speak French. I was going to say no hablo, but I think that would have indicated certainly that I didn't speak French. So I was a little bit nervous. I went to a French instructor and said, hey, help me out here. I'm a little concerned. I need to be able to communicate. And she said, well, she said, when are you going? I said, well, a couple weeks. And she rolled her eyes and said, you know, all right, listen, a lot of Americans travel to Paris. They're kind of accustomed to it now. All you need to do is speak slow and maybe a little louder than normal. What could go wrong? So, but I'm nervous about this, right? I still don't know. This is the best advice. I get on the airplane at Bush Air. No, it was not Bush. It was Houston Airport at that time. And amazingly, the guy next to me had a French-issued passport. So this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. I can try this out. So I turn to him and I say, hey, howdy. Dan Ragsdale is my name. And I am from Texas A&M. The guy's eyes lit up and he grabbed my hand and he said, well, howdy, Dan. I am Bob Smith and I too am from Texas A&M. And now I really got said, so Bob, if you are from Texas A&M and I am from Texas A&M, why are we speaking French? Okay, so setting expectations. Now, you know from where I come, right? So I'm hopeful that the words that I get a chance to share with you today will help light some fires for you, but more importantly, will help you light those fires, because I'm here to say that from my perspective, when I had the opportunity to come back to this job with a fancy title, which happens to have both the word deputy and assistant in it, note that. So the National Cyber Director, that sounds pretty fancy, but when you put the word deputy and assistant in front of it. So I came back to this job because in my mind, I was called upon today to talk about national security threats. In my mind, the red lights are flashing in some respects across the national and economic security front for this great nation. But it's not necessarily just because of the challenges we have in competing with others in terms of technologies and capabilities. We need a workforce. We need a workforce that is super enabled, empowered, equipped with knowledge, skills, and abilities to assume roles in this certainly high-tech environment that we're going to find ourselves in. Many of you are already those people. You are already equipped with the knowledge and skills, but you have an especially important role to inspire those around you to pursue those roles. That, to me, is the message I would like to leave this group. Many of you are familiar with the National Cybersecurity Strategy was published last year. It truly is great reading. I've seen over the course of my many decades in public service, many strategies. Oftentimes they're inconsequential. They sit on a bookshelf. There's really they're not moving the needle. I would tell you, I've been amazed to see the degree with which the team that wrote the National Cybersecurity Strategy has gotten after implementing that strategy, because then it's making it real. And across many fronts, there is no question on my mind that that strategy is moving the needle. I will tell you, your elected representatives on the Hill are holding this office, which it created the better part of 3 years ago, accountable, not just to produce a strategy, but to actually implement that strategy. And telling you just a little bit about the strategy, and I would encourage you, if you have not, please take a look, because it is somewhat of a first of its kind. And it reimagines cyberspace as a tool to achieve our goals in a way that reflects our values as a people and as a country, underscoring the importance of economic security and prosperity and its linkage to national security. They're inextricably linked. And if we were to break them apart, I think it would be at our peril. The strategy also reflects deep respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. You can't help but read it and not see that that underscores everything that was written there. It advocates for a more equitable and diverse society. And as important in our current challenges that we face as a people, it engenders trust in our democracy and our democratic institutions, something we cannot afford to lose as a people. It seeks to build and enhance collaboration across 5 pillars, as was alluded to already, defending critical infrastructures. Cyberspace is not in the domain of server farms that are crunching data that may produce a unacceptable result. Cyberspace, we know, with our interconnected world, there are life, health, and safety issues that immediately come to the front, particularly with respect to our critical infrastructure. It also endeavors the strategy to disrupt and dismantle threat actors, to literally take the fight to threat actors, that to in some respects take the gloves off, to take some risk in order to protect, in order to defend, in order to preserve. We will also want to shape market forces to drive security and resilience. The free market is one of the most powerful influences in our culture and our society. This strategy acknowledges we're not in this alone as a government. That as a matter of fact, the amount of activity that the government can induce or direct is actually in some respects limited with respect to what some of the larger corporations, for example, can do with respect to this space. So we're looking to use those market forces. And we want to invest in a resilient future. And this is what they had me at hello with this one. Focusing more on research, focusing more on the long term, not the here and now. We certainly cannot ignore that the enemies are at the gates and not a day goes by. I used to say not a month, I used to say not a week, not a day goes by that there's not some significant data breach or some circumstance that would cause us to perhaps lose some faith in the infrastructure that we all depend upon so very much. And finally, we need to forge better international partnerships to pursue our shared goals. We have long-standing friends and allies across the globe, countries whose values are aligned with our own that have historically been our great partners and friends. And we are working tirelessly to build upon that foundation, not to tear down that foundation. That foundation is critical to global security, and we are invested in working as closely as we can, as sharing to the full extent that we possibly can with our longstanding international partners. That strategy also embraces two fundamental shifts. It calls for a rebalancing of the responsibility to defend cyberspace in favor of those stakeholders that are most capable and best positioned. Mom and pop small businesses, local and state governments, if you will, and many others are just frankly not equipped. They may be motivated, they may be knowledgeable, but they're not equipped. The big players are, and over time, with whatever influence the federal government can bring to bear, we're going to challenge them and encourage them to play an even larger role in ensuring that those systems that we all depend upon are more secure, are more safe, and are more resilient. And as I mentioned previously, it's one of the 5 pillars, but redoubling our efforts on the long term. There are really interesting, I wish we had more time to discuss some of the important technologies that are under development. A sister element at my organization has recently released a report speaking to some of the technologies that could bear fruit in the context of creating a more secure and more resilient cyber ecosystem. Certainly memory-safe languages, memory-safe environments, memory-safe hardware. And an issue that I foot-stomped from the day I got into ONCD, and it got into the report I was pleased to see was not initially there, is formal methods. Formal methods are not new. Proving that systems have mathematical properties, whether they be reflecting the adherence to the specification or given security properties, are very promising. Certainly, large-scale systems don't lend themselves currently to formal methods, but there's a variety of initiatives. I'm encouraging anybody in the research space that is looking for a topic that is going to make a huge difference. Formal methods certainly could be one of the topics. Now, with that backdrop, let's turn to the National Cyber Workforce and Education Strategy. I joined the office as SPAF indicated in August. I had the actually great honor, Chris Inglis, who's a former speaker, I believe, at this event, a dear friend over the course of decades, reached out to me, and as he was leaving, so he spent 2 hard years, and without going into the details, he did that basically with no pay due. So there is some details about why would he get no pay for such a fancy job. It had to do with he was a retiree, and they removed his retirement pay from his salary, giving him basically pay. So his wife was like, "Really? You're doing, volunteer work that requires you to be at the office 18 hours a day." Either way, Chris Inglis reached out and said, hey, perhaps there's a role for you on the team. I also have a bit of my, but with this, it's not necessarily fully volunteer service like it was for Chris. So I was compelled to come back to work this topic, to work the topic of doing what we can to attract, to recruit, to inspire, to light those flames, to get young men and women, mid-career seniors, to devote their life's work to protecting, to preserving, to defending. My colleagues who wrote the strategy, because I spoke to Chris in February and the red tape of the government being what it was, didn't have first day in the office till August. They had just published the strategy. So I give them tremendous credit. It's a broad, comprehensive strategy with three guiding imperatives, 4 pillars, 15 strategic objectives, and 63 lines of effort. So it is broad, it is comprehensive, it is well conceived, it is well thought out, and I give them all the credit in the world. I will say that it does create a challenge when one endeavors, as I was called upon to help develop the implementation plan for such a broad strategy. And it took us the better part of about 6 months, but we now have, may not be for public release, but we have an implementation plan with 20 initiatives that cuts across the whole of government. And most importantly, much like the national security strategy, it acknowledges that we are not in this alone, that most of the work, most of the effort, most of the initiatives will be done by people just like you in organizations and settings just like this, that the government is not going to come, here is the plan, do what you're told to do. We know that we need to do this in partnership with all of you. They acknowledge that for decades, nearly countless number of organizations in the public and private sectors, in industry, in academia, state, local, tribal, territorial, and small and medium large organizations across all of these sectors have been working tirelessly to address this challenge. We acknowledge also there's been great work done. In some respects, we just need to bottle that up and share it. Bottle it up, document it, assess the degree to which it's moving the needle, and assess the degree to which it's scalable. There's some really interesting things out there that don't scale, so they're not that interesting ultimately. But we're also looking for innovation, right? We don't want the same old necessarily, because we've got to a certain point with our current practices. And, doing the same thing and expecting different results, as Einstein, I believe, shared with us, is insanity, right? So certainly we need to reinforce the good. We need to capture the good, those best practices, and share those broadly. But at the same time, we need to bring some innovation bring some innovation to the space. So I'm not going to run you through the whole strategy, but I will say that some of the innovations that are listed that are instrumental to that strategy they allude specifically and frequently to skill-based hiring. Think of skill-based skill assessment. Think of hiring individuals based upon the skills that he or she brings to bear. Now, what this at times will mean is that simply having a degree, even from a venerable institution such as this or Texas A&M, is not necessarily enough. That's a proxy that has been used by hiring managers for decades. And there's frankly within that HR space, not to demean or diminish the important contributions to that community, there's a fair amount of cutting and pasting and bringing forward what we have done in the past. And what this strategy advocates for is more fine-grained skill assessment, then using that skill assessment as a means to bring in others who might otherwise have had a barrier to entry, respect particularly at the entry level, to this important and burgeoning community for which there's so many unfilled positions. Now, one point that was of great controversy to me when I first got there, they said, we need to eliminate all degree requirements. I'm like, ooh, don't say that. So actually, I was the director himself on a call this week. It was the all hands call, and he made a statement about 2 and 4 year degrees and how not every entry level position, this is God's truth, requires a 4-year or 2-year degree. And he made a statement, and then my boss, if he didn't, I was getting ready to, said, we need to speak about unnecessary degree requirements, right? In some respects, we have to acknowledge there's such great good that transpires in the context of a 2 or 4 year educational experience at an institution of higher education, that there are important skills, maybe some of them not as hard technical, many are, but some not. Some of those soft skills, some of those communication skills, some of those leadership skills, some of those communication skills that are developed and refined in the context of a 2 and 4 year program. So with those are not to be denigrated, but at the same time, there is so many unfilled positions. We have to make the tent bigger. The red lights are flashing. Those roles need to be filled, and it can be filled by men and women given the opportunity, despite the fact they may not have had the opportunity to pursue a higher education. They could very well be very capable in the context performing those roles without that benefit. And we all know this, we've seen this. Many of our non-traditional students, a growing population for all universities, are those that got started in the workplace and they wanted to make better themselves. So they, in the context of their work, pursued education at one of our institutions of higher education. We want to substantially increase use of internships and apprenticeships. And we've actually argued about even the term apprenticeship, because when you think of apprenticeship, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? So, say again? Electricians, plumbers, trades, important work. Good Lord, we need that work to be done, and it's not to be denigrated. But it's not necessarily the same as what we are trying to attract people into the work to do, right? So we've actually kind of struggled with this term and not settled on anything. There's a term recently that I bumped across, that new collar. So you've heard of blue collar, white collar, and new collar. And I actually ran it by my boss and said, so what do you think? It's just something we could speak to. And I'm not even saying it is, but it is part of what we're trying to do in terms of trying to make these jobs and these professions appealing to as large a group as we possibly can. And absolutely, positively, fundamentally must focus on experiential learning opportunities that reinforce what transpires in traditional academic settings. Those of you that have been involved with cybersecurity programs know that when you can get students to participate in cyber competitions of any ilk, to be involved in extracurricular activities, to pursue the writing of research papers, even at the undergraduate level, that those experiences and work experience, example initiative at A&M, our Security Operations Center, we just expanded the staff, not for the necessary function, but in terms of cycling student workers through there that could get real world experience, because frankly, that entry level challenge is real. It's not just, it's there, they have you need entry level, you need these degrees, and you need this number of years experience. Well, chicken or the egg, right? So it's a challenge that we all have to address. And then upskilling and lifelong learning. Certainly it's central to what we've talked about as educators for decades. But more and more organizations are giving folks within their organization the opportunity to acquire new knowledge, new skills in the context of either external hiring opportunities or otherwise, such that they'll acquire the knowledge and skills that would allow them to flourish and move into some of these new jobs. So the challenge, I think may have misordered my notes here. So one of the challenges we have is that we find ourselves with our students and others pursuing other roles because of their appeal. So we've got to be, in some ways, countercultural and demonstrate to them the overriding importance of the roles that we would like for these students and others to pursue. Now, so throughout our history, the United States, as we know, has been at the forefront of innovation. Groundbreaking advancements, fostering progress that has uplifted and enhanced the quality of life for Americans and for all across the global community. Our open society, our thriving free markets, our enduring commitment to civil liberties, our exceptional education system, especially our esteemed institution of higher education, the doors to which students from across the world still beat a path, and many other factors all collectively foster an environment where innovation flourishes. Then and now. Highlighted, of course, that it is the people that are the fuel to that innovation, that engine of innovation, that continues up to the present day to set the standard for the world. That has long been and continues to be our competitive advantage. But as I alluded to earlier, if we don't have a sufficiently large future workforce that is equipped, that is empowered with the knowledge, the skills, the abilities, the capabilities, the underlying motivation to hit the ground running in future cyber and emerging technology roles, then we may in fact lose our leading role. That is the challenge before it. That is, in my mind, one of the greatest national and economic security threats we are currently facing. Some will say that red lights are flashing across many dashboards. I, for one, I'm sure many of you, do not ascribe to those dire reports. Surely the challenge, but much like Mark Twain, when he learned that his obituary was accidentally published, fabulously stated, the reports of his death were greatly exaggerated. I think the reports that the demise of America as the engine of innovation for the world are greatly exaggerated. In fact, I'm bullish. I know that we can do this, that the United States will continue to out-innovate the world and will continue to facilitate economic security in a manner that uplifts and benefits not only Americans, but everyone in the increasingly interconnected global community. So why do I feel this confidence? Especially in the context of our current challenges. You might recall at the outset of my remarks, I accuse you all of being unindicted, co-conspiratorial arsonists. So what was that all about? So most of you may know, or I'm sure you've heard of, the 20th century Irish poet W.B. Yeats. But you may know that you may not know that he's credited with making one of the most insightful, at least for me, one of the most impactful observations about education when he stated the following: education is not about the filling of a bucket. It is about the lighting of a fire. I heard that remark early in my tenure as a captain instructor in the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science in the 90s. And it forever changed the way that I approach my responsibility as a teacher and educator. And I'll even go one step further. It approached the way that I dealt with anybody at any time. I was literally thunderstruck. And by literally, I mean figuratively. By this remark, it has had a profound influence on the trajectory of my future life. Every time I walked into a classroom, nearly every time I interacted with students, I brought that quote to mind. So for me, at least, it begs the question, who were my firefighters? Who in my life radically transformed and affected the trajectory of my life? And I can report to you without any details that my 6th grade science teacher, Sister Mary, my high school physics teacher, Mr. Fisk, and my West Point psychology professor, Captain Barney Forsythe, who coincidentally enough was later Colonel Barney Forsythe, Vice Dean for Education, and I succeeded him as Vice Dean for Education in a sort of a interesting, ironic twist. They changed my life in ways that I can't even begin to describe. They radically affected the trajectory of my life. They believed in me, they invested in me, and they challenged me. They inspired me with their words. They inspired me with their deeds. They inspired me with their empathy and care for me and their obvious desire to make the world a better place. I found it incredibly inspiring. They saw in me something I didn't see in myself. And to them, I owe an eternal debt of gratitude. Now, I'd also like to share a story of one of my coworkers. So when I came to the office, I got a chance to meet the team, and I'm pleased to report it is a very capable, very diverse in terms of not just the typical things that come to mind in terms of diversity, but diversity of background, diversity of perspective, diversity of even work roles. And one of my colleagues is Ayan Islam. She's a Somali native, born and raised in Kuwait. She's a member of the team, and she's helping work with me and with my boss to expand the cyber workforce, improve its diversity, and remove barriers to entry. She came to the United States to attend American University there in DC, where she studied business administration. But during her time, she went on to law school, which she attended at night while working full-time for the DC government. She soon realized that she was truly excited about protecting the American people from the threat emerging in our increasing digitally connected world. In fact, her friend said, Ayan, and she lights up every room she's in. Your face absolutely lights up when you talk about technology. Through her path, she was discovering and determining how to break into it. But it was hard for her to know where to start. She needed guidance, she needed mentors, she needed advisors. Fortunately, a law school counselor and trusted advisor, Ms. Adrienne Jones, told her about a job fair that Congressman Bernie Thompson of Mississippi had organized. Job fair connected constituents and those in the DC area who wanted to work in technical fields with government agencies. She attended the job fair based upon the advice, the short conversation she had with one of her advisors. And ultimately, she took a job in the cyber division at the Department of Homeland Security. Today, I'm proud to call her a colleague, and as a member of our workforce and education team, we are all benefiting from her experience and perspective, and I personally am so glad that she found a path to our office. I'm also pleased to acknowledge her trusted advisor, Ms. Jones. She's now a senior attorney at the Social Security Administration. She saw something in Ayan that perhaps Ayan had not seen it in herself. She believed in her. She challenged her. She helped lead her to a future where she was able to use her immense talents, contributed to something much larger than herself, making the world a better place, a safer, more resilient world in which digital miscreants are less likely to bring harm or damage to individuals and organizations. We should all be thankful to Ms. Jones. But that begs the question for all of you. Who are your Miss Jones? Who are your Sister Marys? Who are your Mr. Fisks? Who are your Colonel Barney Forsyth? Give that some thought. Bring those individuals to mind, because they materially impacted you in ways that brought you here today, into roles that you know are of consequence, into roles that are making a difference, into roles where you're contributing to something larger than yourselves. Hold on to that feeling, and then use it as the basis through which to redouble your efforts, because I know you're already doing this. But you come in contact on a daily basis with, in some cases, nearly countless folks. And for them to see you modeling the degree to which that you embrace your role, the degree to which that you believe that you're making a difference, the degree to which you can guide them, advise them, mentor them, the degree to which you light fires. Not simply filling buckets, but by lighting fires of inspiration, especially during these trying times. I hope you, in some respects, you're getting a message of hope from me to you, because I think we do need to embrace the good and a brighter future in the context of our current challenges. And you and those you interact with will be able to make that positive difference. Many of those individuals, like yourself, are searching for a life with meaning. Media reports of current generations sometimes are demean the motivations, the underlying motivations of some young people in this country and around the world. But they are pursuing a life with meaning in many cases, a life with purpose, and a life where they can contribute to something larger than themselves. All of them, each and every one of them, I'm sure you know, could be positively influenced by your words, by your actions, and most important of all, by your concern, your empathetic concern for their well-being, not just in the present, but in the future. Invest in the future of these people, these men and women, and you will make a positive difference. So I encourage you, I implore you, I beseech you, not in the script, but just, encourage those around you you come in contact with to pursue studies and experiential learning opportunities that will prepare them to be gainfully employed as a member of a cyber workforce, where they will do important, meaningful, rewarding, consequential, and it should go out saying also good paying jobs, where they will protect important commercial and government systems, including the critical infrastructures upon which we all depend, where they will help secure the intellectual property of small, medium, and large companies that help drive our engine of innovation, not to be denigrated, not to be discounted. It is of great importance. But also where they will preserve the personal and private data and information of citizens of free countries around the globe. And most importantly, from my perspective, over my many years of being associated with the federal government, where they will contribute to the preservation of the cherished liberties and the freedoms that we collectively hold so dear. wrap up my remarks now, I'd like to call out two Americans that I hold in high esteem. Admiral James Stockdale was the most senior POW in the Vietnam War. He suffered through it nearly a half dozen years as a senior leader and all that befalls those that find themselves in senior leader roles. And they asked him, like, what made a difference? How is it that you were able to survive and in some respects even thrive and others didn't? And he said, there were some people that, they were unrealistically optimistic, that they were Pollyannish, that they believe, well, we're going to be home by Christmas. But those beliefs are not based in reality. So we said, we must never confuse faith, that hope, that we will prevail in the end, which we can never afford to lose. We can never afford to lose that faith. But we can't confuse it with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of our current reality, whichever they might be. So the call is to not ignore the challenges. The call is to account for and acknowledge and address those challenges, but at the same time, be ever hopeful, ever confident that we will prevail in the end. Are the challenges great? Certainly. But do I have hope? Certainly. He more than anyone gives me hope. Also, all the people in this room, you all give me hope. My colleagues at ONCD give me hope. The many bright, talented students that I've come to know over many decades give me hope. Many of my colleagues in the federal government give me hope. And most of all, the indomitable spirit of American people, those men and women who in times of crisis and conflict throughout our history have risen to the occasion. Like all of you and my colleagues, I bet on the American people. And we should be abundantly confident that bet will pay off. Finally, as I end my remarks, I'll end them with some advice that came from one of my all-time favorite public figures, Maya Angelou. Most of you know her as a writer, poet, activist. She was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2010 by President Barack Obama, who at the time spoke of, as it relates to what we're talking about here and your role. She was determined to inspire every one of us to recognize and embrace the possibility and the potential we all hold. So what advice did Maya give us? She said that I learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. That said, if my remarks today in any way, shape, or form have inspired you to feel more motivated to redouble your efforts to encourage those who you come in contact with to pursue studies and experiential learning opportunities to prepare them for gainful employment as members of the cyber workforce, then perhaps we've accomplished something here today. Thank you again to all of you, to SPAF and the team. I think there may be a couple moments for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rags. Can you imagine what he could get done if he had some enthusiasm? We do have time for a few questions. We have a mic set up here. If you would like to pose a question or make a short statement, questions preferred, please come up to the microphone and we'll do that.
Hi there, my name is Pam Schmelz. I'm with Ivy Tech Community College. I have 17 students with me here today, and it was like you were speaking to us. And I hope that the companies and industry that are in the room also remember our 2-year colleges. These guys are attending a one-year accelerated cybersecurity program at Muscatatuck Urban Training Center.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Safi. I have one question. How do you think the AI will impact cybersecurity world?
So enormously, enormously. I didn't allude to. So when we talk about the cyber workforce, you notice I didn't say cybersecurity workforce, for which there is countless number of unfilled positions. But what I was speaking to is that broader cyber workforce, which includes the need to have AI practitioners, data scientists, quantum researchers and scholars working in that space. So those emerging technologies that we all know will be tremendously impactful. We need the workforce to both build, design, secure them. And in terms of the specific role that AI will play with respect to cybersecurity, there is really two dimensions. There is AI for cybersecurity. So there's a burgeoning space of research that's being devoted to that particular topic. Can we do better by leveraging the advances in AI and machine learning, deep learning that we've seen? And in another dimension, there is those systems themselves, those black boxes. Is there an adversarial model that we need to account for in terms of how one might use a variety of methods, whether it be data poisoning or otherwise, that could cause those systems to not function properly, particularly in the context of a critical circumstances or crisis. So absolutely central to our strategy. Just to continue the point, there's a really impressive program called Scholarship for Service out of the National Science Foundation, has brought hundreds and hundreds over the course of 20 plus years, individuals into first federal service and ultimately perhaps service in the private and public sectors. That program, in partnership with the National Security Agency, where they have the Center of Academic Excellence in cybersecurity, they work very closely together. They are at congressional direction in the NSF developing a extension of the Scholarship for Service program, which has a specialization in AI across those two dimensions. And the Center of Academic Excellence program, run out of the National Security Agency, is doing something comparable. So great question. You ran out of time to put it in my remarks. So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
I'll note that a little bit later today, we have a panel on the role of AI in cybersecurity. So we haven't ignored that here. Other questions?
Yes, I'm Claudio Norquello. I'm Chief AI Officer for Zscaler, and I have worked for 20 years in formal methods before I switched to AI, especially in semiconductor, before switching to AI and to cybersecurity. And it came to me dearly when you mentioned formal methods. How do you view formal methods with AI and cybersecurity?
That's a really interesting last. I'll be honest with you. I've been doubling down and highlighting the potential value of formal methods. I actually ran a program called Crowdsourced Formal Methods at DARPA. And it was one of those DARPA programs where, DARPA, amazing, right? They've changed the world, but not everything that's done at DARPA produces anything of value. Anything of that is transition. Certainly they expand the boundaries of knowledge. So that in and of itself is worth noting. But the crowdsourced formal verification program was, can we take a large code base and transform it such that it could be sucked into a game? And if somebody wins the game, it solves part of the problem of annotating source code such that formal methods could be brought to bear. And I'm smiling now because it was really cool, but it turns out we were hoping there would be like some first shooter person games, first and even though that's not necessarily something we should celebrate, but that would attract a big crowd. But all the games that were developed, and with many of your taxpayer dollars, were puzzle games, which are interesting, but did not attract a big crowd. And if you're trying to do crowds, anything, you have a small crowd. All right. So back to your question, I absolutely believe that there is some potential there, unrealized potential, to bring to bear AI, because when we talked about formal methods, there's like 100 PhD holding experts, at least at the time, in formal methods. And that you can't scale with that number. So we need, and that was the reason for crowdsource. So we got 100 experts. What can we do? We'll crowdsource it. But to your point, perhaps the approach is to try to bottle up that expertise in some way, shape, or form in the context of formally proving the security properties. And I'm also, just not directly related to this, two dimensions of my excitement about formal methods. Stat solvers, so important. And they keep saying, well, they're gonna, we're there. But somehow every year it's like, good Lord, like they're much more efficient. So granted, it's a provably hard problem, but the fact that stat solvers are being enhanced by leaps and bounds almost every year, that's a good news story. And I'm also over the moon thrilled about formal methods for hardware design. That currently VHDL, for example, is not very viable. And so we test and test and test, and we hope that we get something that does what it's supposed to do, and there's no underlying nefarious design built in, but we just hope and pray. There is an approach that I've heard of: translate that VHDL into an intermediate language that lends itself to formal verification. Okay. 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 So we should talk. We should talk. But so yes, AI, formal methods. Boom. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Eric Amos, United States Transportation Command. One of the initiatives we do over there in the St. Louis area and Scott Air Force Base is community outreach during National Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Yes.
And one of the things that we emphasize is cyber hygiene, use of passwords, and we do this with, grades 1 through.
Fabulous.
What other, I guess, areas would you emphasize as we start to evolve? As passwords, two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication start to evolve?
Yeah, so it's in fact great questions. And again, one more time, the strategy, the 4 pillars that I didn't tell you about, because I want you to read the strategy. Pillar number 1 is foundational cyber skills for all Americans. So certainly we have to, do some reform with respect to the way that we educate and train. We certainly have a national cybersecurity workforce shortfall. And in the federal government, one of our pillars, the lights are flashing. We need more expertise in the federal government. But the first pillar, by design, I asked the question, did we prioritize them? And the answer is yes. They said, as part of the strategy, all Americans need to up their game. They need to better understand the risks. They need to better understand the threats. They need to put into place cyber hygiene and practices that will reduce the likelihood they will find themselves victim. So it's very central. Now, yeah, so what can we do? So in the strategy, so Cybersecurity Awareness Month is a big deal for us. So we, working closely with DHS, are responsible for crafting much of that campaign, including the presidential proclamation. And some of the things you allude to, especially the K through 12 piece, we have to bring into play a generation of young people that understand the implications of some activities and some of what they do that could have lifelong impacts, right? So that is I was speaking with somebody earlier about Gen Cyber. The Gen Cyber program, also facilitated by NSF and NSA, really fabulous series of summer camps that educate not just the kids, but the educators. Because that's clearly another shortfall that we have is we don't have enough teachers, educators, scholars, faculty that are equipped to help do the kinds of activities that you're describing. So a very central area of focus for the strategy, and some of it's reflected there beyond what I might have just shared with you now. But certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me and the team if you're looking for additional activities you think that can enhance what you're doing.
Yes, sir. we will.
Sure.
Thank you much.
We also have somebody here from the Gen Cyber program. So Ashley and Eric, if you hook up. Okay, we have time for one more question.
Dr. Ragsdale, thank you for your time today. My name is Noah Pumphrey. I'm a student, undergrad at IUPUI, soon to be Purdue University, Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I'm also a part of the NSF Cyber Corp Scholarship for Service down at Indianapolis. So really looking forward to working in national security and cybersecurity. My question for you was, you spoke about internships and how we need positions for students and individuals that want to get into the cyber workforce. Something I've seen a lot is that people have an issue with trying to get entry levels into cybersecurity because it's more intermediate level with the type of knowledge you need.
100%, sure.
Yeah, so you talked about new collar, and I was thinking when you said new collar, I thought of mentorships, and I thought, is that the path forward for cybersecurity, having more of mentorships to kind of get you those skills that you would need for a position in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so if I didn't foot stop mentorship, I probably should have, and I'm basically trying to empower all of the faculty and those that are chronologically challenged, such as myself, to reach out and mentor and advise and counsel. And the beautiful thing about internships, it's not a secret, it is the most effective workforce hiring program in the known universe for just about any organization, because you get a try before you buy situation for both parties, but they also are doing the job. So any student, absolutely pursue experiential learning opportunities. Be aggressive. Get out there and apply. The NSA, and I'm not here to be a shill for NSA, but their internship programs, I know many students that have come through and they acquire some really extraordinary knowledge and skills, but not just there and not just in the federal government. There's many, many companies that want you. And so beat down their doors, not literally, but figuratively. I'm still working on that word. And seek those internships, seek those co-ops. Seek student employment opportunities right here on your campuses to acquire knowledge and skills so you can point to it. Yeah, I got experience. I've got some deep knowledge acquired in the context of traditional academic circumstances, but I also have some experiences that you could point to, demonstrate you have the skills, back to skill-based assessment, skill-based hiring, that would make you appealing to those in a entry-level position. Acknowledging it's difficult. We're trying to get the band together, but then you're not necessarily welcome because you don't have the experience. So the onus is on you. The onus is on all of us. The onus on you to pursue. The onus on us is to encourage you to pursue experiential learning opportunities that you can point to claim as true experience in conjunction with the knowledge that you've acquired in other settings to pursue those roles.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, let's thank Dr. Ragsdale.
Thank you.